Welcome back to another story on Infidelity Tales Lab. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Warning. Franklin Bean had learned to trust his instincts during 8 years in military intelligence. But he'd never imagined his 6-year-old daughter Emma would inherit that same uncanny ability to sense danger. The October morning started like any other. Shannon, his wife, had left early for her nursing shift at Portland General Hospital, leaving Franklin to handle the school run. Their 3-month-old son, Jack, slept peacefully in his nursery under the watch of Nadine Hatch, the sitter they'd hired just 2 weeks ago through a premium agency. Nadine came with impeccable references, a warm smile, and 20 years of childcare experience. Emma chattered in the back seat about her upcoming school play as Franklin navigated the tree-lined streets of their suburban neighborhood. The morning sun filtered through orange and red leaves, casting everything in an autumn glow that should have felt peaceful. Then Emma's entire body went rigid. "Dad, we need to go back. Now." Franklin glanced in the rearview mirror. His daughter's face had gone pale, her small hands gripping the door handle. In all his years reading people, interrogating insurgents, detecting lies, assessing threats, he'd never seen that particular expression on anyone's face. It was pure, primal fear. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Please." Her voice cracked with desperation. "Something's wrong with Jack. We have to go back right now." Franklin's training kicked in immediately. He didn't dismiss it as childhood imagination or ask questions. He executed a sharp U-turn that made tires screech, earning angry honks from other drivers. His heart hammered as he pressed the accelerator, weaving through traffic. "What do you feel, Emma? Tell me exactly." "I don't know." Tears streamed down her face. "It's like when you have a nightmare and can't breathe. Jack needs us. Something bad is there." Franklin's mind raced through possibilities. Gas leak? Medical emergency? His phone connected to the home security system showed all clear. No alarms triggered, no unusual activity. But something Emma said nagged at him. Not something bad is happening, but something bad is there. He pushed the accelerator harder. They burst through the front door 3 minutes later, a trip that should have taken 12. Franklin moved with tactical precision, immediately cataloging everything. Nadine's purse on the hallway table, her jacket on the coat rack, coffee mug in the kitchen, still warm. Everything appeared normal. Too normal. "Stay behind me," Franklin commanded Emma, his voice dropping to the tone he'd used in combat zones. As they approached the nursery, Franklin heard it, or rather, didn't hear it. Jack should have been making sounds by now. The baby monitor that usually transmitted soft breathing, occasional coos, or restless movements was completely silent. Franklin pushed open the nursery door and felt his blood turn to ice. Nadine Hatch stood over Jack's crib, a pillow in her hands, positioned over his son's face. Jack's tiny legs kicked weakly, his muffled cries barely audible through the thick material. Nadine's back was to the door, so focused on her terrible task that she hadn't heard them enter. Franklin moved with the speed and precision that had made him one of the military's most effective operatives. In 2 strides, he'd crossed the room and seized Nadine's wrist, wrenching it back with controlled force. The pillow dropped. She screamed, a sound of rage, not fear, and spun toward him with shocking violence, her other hand producing a syringe from her cardigan pocket. But Franklin was faster. He caught her wrist mid-thrust, twisted her arm behind her back, and forced her to the ground face first. The syringe clattered across the hardwood floor. "Emma, take Jack to your room. Lock the door. Don't come out until I say." Emma, sobbing but composed beyond her years, scooped up her baby brother and ran. Franklin kept his knee planted firmly between Nadine's shoulder blades as he zip-tied her wrist with restraints he kept in his pocket, old habits from his intelligence days. She thrashed and screamed, but it was useless. He'd immobilized insurgents 3 times her size. "You're too late, Franklin," she spat, her voice dripping with venom. "This was never just about the baby. You should have stayed gone. You should have died in Kandahar with the rest of them." Franklin's blood ran cold. Kandahar. That single word connected everything to a past he'd tried to bury. "Who sent you?" His voice was deadly calm. Nadine laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. You really don't remember, do you? Operation Midnight Sunday. You destroyed lives that day, Franklin. You destroyed families. Now we're returning the favor. Franklin's mind flashed back 7 years. Operation Midnight Sun, a Black Ops mission to extract a high-value informant from a Taliban compound. Intelligence suggested the target was alone with minimal security. The intelligence was wrong. When Franklin's team breached the compound, they found not just the informant, but his entire extended family. The firefight that followed was catastrophic. Women and children caught in crossfire. Franklin had pulled the informant out, completed his mission, but the collateral damage haunted him still. He'd left military intelligence 3 years ago, partly because of that night. Brian Boyer, Franklin said quietly, the name emerging from buried memories. The informant's nephew. He survived. Nadine's laugh confirmed it. Brian didn't just survive. He thrived. And he spent every year since then planning this. You took his family, Franklin. His mother, his 2 sisters, his cousins. All dead because you followed orders without question. I had faulty intelligence, Franklin said, though the words felt hollow even to him. I didn't know they'd be there. And now you know how it feels, Nadine hissed. Brian wanted you to watch your son die, to know that helpless agony. But this is just the beginning. He has plans for all of you, your wife, your daughter, everyone you love. You can't stop what's coming. Franklin felt rage building in his chest, but he channeled it into cold calculation. You said we. Who else? Before Nadine could answer, Franklin's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Did you enjoy the show, Franklin? Check your security cameras. All of them. Franklin pulled up his security app with one hand while maintaining pressure on Nadine. The cameras throughout his house played back footage from the past 15 minutes. He watched himself leave with Emma. Watched Nadine wave goodbye with that warm smile. Then, the moment the door closed, her expression transformed into something predatory. She moved to the nursery with purpose, pulled out the pillow and syringe from a hidden pocket in her cardigan. But the camera also showed something else. In the corner of the frame, barely visible through the living room window, a figure watched from across the street. The angle wasn't clear enough to identify them, but Franklin could make out expensive clothing and a deliberate, patient stance. Another text arrived. I've been watching you for months, Franklin, learning your routines, your weaknesses. Nadine was test number 1. She failed, but there will be others. You can't protect them all the time. Welcome to your new nightmare. Chapter 2. Ghosts of Kandahar. The police arrived within 8 minutes of Franklin's 911 call. Detective Vernon Shaw, a grizzled veteran with 30 years on the force, took Franklin's statement with the weary efficiency of someone who'd seen too much. Nadine Hatch was handcuffed and taken away in a squad car, still screaming threats about Brian Boyer and Franklin's coming downfall. Shannon rushed home from the hospital, her face ashen as she clutched Jack to her chest. The baby seemed unharmed. Franklin had caught Nadine in the first seconds of her attack, but Shannon insisted on a full medical examination anyway. The pediatrician found no physical injuries, though the thought of what almost happened would haunt them both. Emma sat quietly on the couch, her small frame wrapped in a blanket, watching everything with solemn eyes. Franklin knew that look. His daughter had changed today. She'd seen evil up close, used her gift to save her brother, and lost a piece of her innocence in the process. By nightfall, the house was secure. Triple-checked locks, upgraded security system, and Franklin's old service weapon cleaned and loaded in the bedroom safe. But security measures wouldn't stop Brian Boyer. Franklin knew that kind of hatred, that kind of planning. This was personal, and it wouldn't end until one of them was destroyed. After Shannon finally got Emma and Jack to sleep, she found Franklin in his home office, surrounded by files and his old military laptop. The screen glowed with classified documents he wasn't supposed to have anymore. Documents he'd kept as insurance, never imagining he'd need them like this. Tell me everything, Shannon said, closing the door behind her. Her voice was steady, controlled. This was the woman who'd pulled through nursing school while Franklin deployed to war zones, who'd endured his PTSD nightmares without flinching, who'd built a life with him knowing his past could always catch up. Tell me about Operation Midnight Sunday. Franklin took a breath and began. 7 years ago, I was running point for a CIA Black Ops team in Afghanistan. Our mission was to extract a high-value informant named Alvin Boyer. He'd been feeding us intelligence on Taliban supply routes for months, but his cover was blown. We had 12 hours to get him out before they executed him. He pulled up a file showing Alvin Boyer's photograph, a thin man in his 40s with tired eyes and a nervous smile. The intelligence brief said Alvin was alone in a rural compound, standard family home, minimal security. We went in at 2 a.m. with a 6-man team. Standard extraction protocol. Fast, quiet, efficient. Franklin's hands trembled slightly as he continued. But when we breached, the compound was full. Alvin's extended family, his wife, 2 daughters, his sister, and her 3 kids, his elderly mother. They were there for some kind of family gathering we didn't know about. Our intel was either wrong or deliberately incomplete. I never found out which. Shannon reached for his hand. She knew what came next would be hard. The Taliban had been watching the compound. When we breached, they attacked. Heavy firefight, civilians in the crossfire. My team did everything we could to protect them, but he closed his eyes. When the smoke cleared, Alvin's wife was dead. His 2 daughters, ages 14 and 16. His sister and 2 of her children. 5 civilians total. The only survivors were Alvin, his elderly mother, and his nephew Brian. Brian Boyer, Shannon whispered. Nadine mentioned that name. Brian was 18 then. I remember him kneeling in the rubble, covered in his family's blood, screaming at us. At me specifically, I was the team leader giving orders. Alvin was extracted successfully, relocated to the United States under witness protection. I filed my report, recommended a full investigation into the intelligence failure, and tried to move on. But you couldn't. No. Franklin's voice cracked. That mission broke something in me. I started questioning every order, every piece of intelligence. I couldn't trust the system anymore. 3 years ago, I resigned and became a private security consultant. I thought I could leave it behind. Shannon studied the photograph of Brian Boyer on the screen, a young man with dark, intelligent eyes filled with rage. What happened to him? Last I heard, he'd disappeared. The military kept tabs on surviving family members of compromised assets, but Brian vanished from monitoring about 5 years ago. Rumors suggested he'd gone to Europe, maybe joined some private military contractors. I never imagined he'd come back, especially not like this. Franklin pulled up more files. After Nadine's arrest, I started digging. Brian Boyer didn't just disappear. He reinvented himself. He's now a successful tech entrepreneur in Seattle, running a cybersecurity firm called Phantom Solutions. On the surface, it's legitimate. Corporate clients, government contracts, the works. But the company specializes in surveillance technology, data mining, and what they call strategic intelligence gathering. He's been watching us. For months, maybe longer. That text he sent showed knowledge of our routines, our vulnerabilities. Nadine Hatch wasn't just a random sitter. She was a plant. I checked her background again with my old contacts. Her real name is Nadine Boyer. She's Brian's aunt, Alvin's sister-in-law. She survived the compound attack and has been living under the radar ever since. Shannon's face paled. The agency that placed her, compromised. I'm betting Brian owns it through a shell company or has enough leverage to manipulate their vetting process. Either way, he got his operative into our home, close to our children. Franklin's jaw clenched. The question is, who else has he placed in our lives? A knock at the door made them both jump. Franklin's hand instinctively moved toward his weapon before he recognized Detective Shaw's gravelly voice. Mr. Bean, we need to talk. We got a problem. Franklin opened the door to find Shaw looking grim. Behind him stood a woman in an expensive suit, government credentials in hand. Franklin Bean, she said coolly. I'm Special Agent Victoria Lang, FBI. We need to discuss Brian Boyer, Operation Midnight Sun, and why you're in possession of classified military documents. Chapter 3. The Trap Titans. Special Agent Lang sat in Franklin's living room like she owned it. her sharp eyes cataloging every detail. She was in her early 40s, with the kind of controlled intensity that suggested a lot of field experience and very little patience for bullshit. "Before we begin," she said, opening her briefcase, "I need you to understand the situation you're in. Possessing classified documents after separation from service is a federal crime. The only reason you're not in custody right now is because Brian Boyer is a bigger problem than your security violations." Franklin remained standing, arms crossed. "What do you know about Boyer?" "More than you, apparently." Lang pulled out a thick file. "Brian Boyer has been on our radar for 2 years. Phantom Solutions isn't just a cybersecurity firm. It's a front for industrial espionage, blackmail, and what we believe is a sophisticated revenge operation targeting multiple individuals connected to Operation Midnight Sunday." She spread photographs across the coffee table. Franklin's blood ran cold as he recognized faces. Members of his old team, CIA handlers, intelligence analysts who'd provided the faulty information about the compound. Kerry Berger, former CIA station chief in Kabul, died in a suspicious car accident 14 months ago. Louis Benjamin, intelligence analyst, apparent suicide last year, though his family insists he wasn't depressed. Bobby Mills, one of your team members, currently in a coma after a home invasion that police say was unusually violent. "Shall I continue?" Shannon grabbed Franklin's arm. "You said apparent suicide. You don't believe it was real." "No, Mrs. Bean, we don't. Each death or injury was carefully staged to appear accidental or self-inflicted. But when you see the pattern, when you understand Boyer's resources and capabilities, it becomes clear he's systematically destroying everyone involved in Operation Midnight Sunday." Franklin studied the photographs. "How many? Out of the 23 people directly involved in the operation, 7 are dead. 4 seriously injured. 3 have disappeared. You're number 8 on the list, Franklin. And unlike the others, Boyer wants you to suffer. The attempt on your son wasn't meant to succeed. It was meant to terrorize you." "Then why did Nadine actually try to kill Jack?" Shannon demanded. Lang's expression darkened. "We're not sure she was. The syringe she had contained a powerful sedative, not a lethal dose. Our theory is she was meant to sedate the baby, make it look like SIDS, cause you to discover him appearing dead. Then, when medical examination revealed he was only sedated, you'd be left with the psychological trauma of thinking your child had died, even briefly. Maximum emotional damage, minimal legal consequences. A pillow over the face for a few seconds causes panic, but no lasting harm if interrupted quickly." "Which Emma did," Franklin said quietly. "Her sixth sense saved him and disrupted Boyer's plan, which means he'll escalate." Lang leaned forward. "We've been trying to build a case against Boyer for months, but he's smart. Every action is insulated through layers of intermediaries. Nadine will plead guilty to attempted assault, serve maybe 5 years, and never implicate her nephew. We can't touch him legally." Franklin felt a cold smile cross his face. "Then we don't touch him legally. Mr. Bean, you came here to warn me, Agent Lang. Thank you. But if the FBI can't protect my family or bring Boyer to justice, then I'll handle it my way." Lang studied him for a long moment. "I can't officially condone vigilante action. I'm not asking for your blessing. However," Lang continued carefully, "if someone were to gather actionable intelligence on Phantom Solutions' illegal activities, someone with your particular skill set, the FBI would be very interested in receiving that information through proper channels. We'd also be grateful if that someone kept us informed of Boyer's movements, plans, and associates." Franklin understood what she was really saying. The FBI wanted Brian Boyer, but their hands were tied by legal procedures and evidence requirements. They needed someone who could operate outside those constraints, gather intelligence they couldn't obtain through warrants and wiretaps. They needed Franklin to be the hunter he used to be. "I'll need resources," Franklin said. "Access to surveillance equipment, communications intercepts, financial records. The kind of things that require warrants." Lang pulled a business card from her pocket and wrote a number on the back. "This reaches me directly 24/7. You'll find I'm sometimes careless about where I leave sensitive case files. For instance, I might accidentally email you Boyer's complete dossier. including his known associates, properties, and business dealings. Purely by mistake, of course. Of course. But Franklin, Lang's voice hardened, if you cross certain lines, if anyone dies, if you break laws we can't ignore, I can't protect you. The FBI needs plausible deniability. Are we clear? Crystal. After Lang left, Shannon turned to Franklin with fire in her eyes. What's the plan? We need to understand Boyer completely. His network, his resources, his psychological state. Then we dismantle him piece by piece. Shannon raised an eyebrow. Franklin, I'm not letting you do this alone. I'm a trauma nurse. I've seen what monsters do to people. And I'm not going to sit at home wondering if this psychopath is sending another killer after our children. Franklin started to protest, but Shannon cut him off. I know you think you're protecting me by keeping me out of it, but I'm already in it. We both are. Brian Boyer made this personal when he went after Jack. So either we work together, or I investigate on my own and probably get myself killed. Your choice. Franklin recognized that stubborn set to her jaw. Shannon Watkins had grown up in South Portland, the daughter of a longshoreman and a waitress. She put herself through nursing school while working 2 jobs, dealt with belligerent drunks in the ER, and once talked down an armed robbery suspect who'd wandered into the hospital. She wasn't a woman who backed down from a fight. All right, Franklin conceded, but we do this smart. Boyer is watching us, probably listening too. We assume every device is compromised, every conversation monitored. We need a secure location to work from. What about your friend Lloyd Barrera? Didn't he used to work with you in intelligence? Franklin smiled. Lloyd Barrera, former Marine, current owner of a private security firm in Portland. They'd served together in Afghanistan, trusted each other with their lives. If anyone could help them build a counter-surveillance operation, it was Lloyd. Good thinking. I'll reach out tomorrow, in person. No phones, no emails. In the meantime, we act normal. Go through the motions of being terrified victims. That's what Boyer expects. That night, as Franklin triple-checked the security system and Shannon rocked baby Jack to sleep, Emma appeared in the hallway. Her small face was troubled. Dad? That bad feeling is not gone. It's still out there. Franklin knelt beside his daughter. I know, sweetheart, but I promise you, I'm going to make it go away. I'm going to make us safe. The lady with the pillow, she was really angry. Not at us. At you. Yes. Emma's voice dropped to a whisper. There are more angry people, aren't there? More than just her. Franklin couldn't lie to his daughter. Not after what she'd been through. Yes, but I'm going to handle it. You saved Jack today, Emma. You were so brave. Now it's my turn to protect all of you. Emma hugged him tightly. Promise you'll come back? Promise you won't leave us like those people left that man's family? Franklin felt his heart shatter. His 6-year-old daughter had intuited the moral complexity of his past, the weight of Operation Midnight Sun, the cycle of violence and revenge. I promise, he whispered into her hair. I'm not leaving you. Ever. But as Emma returned to bed and Franklin stood alone in the dark hallway, he wondered if that was a promise he could keep. Brian Boyer was smart, well-funded, and absolutely committed to his revenge. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a war Franklin needed to win completely, or his family would never be safe. The next morning, Agent Lang's accidental email arrived with Boyer's complete file. Franklin printed everything in his office, spreading documents across every surface. Shannon brought coffee, and they began the deep dive into their enemy's world. Brian Boyer had built an impressive empire. Phantom Solutions had government contracts worth millions, clients across 3 continents, and a spotless public reputation. But the FBI's investigation had uncovered darker truths. Shell companies that purchased surveillance equipment for cash, encrypted communications with known criminals, financial transfers to offshore accounts that suggested money laundering or payoffs. And then Franklin found something that made his blood run cold. Shannon, look at this. It was a property record. 3 months ago, Brian Boyer had purchased a house. Not in Seattle where his business was based, but in Portland, just 4 miles from Franklin's home. He's here, Shannon breathed. He's been living here, watching us in person. Franklin pulled up the address on his laptop. The house was in an upscale neighborhood, gated community, Perfect cover for someone who wanted to blend in while conducting surveillance. "We need to see that house," Franklin said, carefully, without Boyer knowing. "I need to understand what we're up against." His phone buzzed with a text from Lloyd Barrera, coffee shop on Morrison, 10 a.m. "Come alone. Watch for tails." Franklin smiled grimly. Lloyd was careful, exactly what they needed. But as he prepared to leave, another text arrived from the unknown number. "Saw the FBI visit last night. Special Agent Lang is impressive, isn't she? But federal protection won't save you, Franklin. I'm always 3 steps ahead. Sleep well while you still can." Chapter 4. Assembling the Arsenal. Lloyd Barrera looked exactly as Franklin remembered, 6'3" of solid muscle, with a shaved head, a scar across his left eyebrow, and eyes that never stopped scanning for threats. He sat in the back corner of the coffee shop, positioned to watch both entrances, his hand resting casually near his concealed weapon. Franklin slid into the booth across from him, having confirmed he wasn't followed using counter-surveillance techniques Lloyd had taught him years ago. "You look like hell," Lloyd said by way of greeting. "Someone tried to murder my infant son yesterday." "Yeah, I heard." Lloyd's expression darkened. "Word travels in our circles. Brian Boyer's making noise, letting people know he's coming for you. Some of the old crew is nervous. They think they might be next. They're right to be nervous." Agent Lang showed me the casualty list. 7 dead, 4 injured, 3 missing. Lloyd whistled low. "Boyer's been busy. And now he's in Portland, right in your backyard. You knew. I make it my business to know when dangerous people enter my city. I've had eyes on Boyer's house for 2 weeks. He's got serious security, private guards, cameras, probably armed response. And he's not alone." Franklin leaned forward. "Who's with him?" "That's the interesting part." Lloyd pulled out a tablet and showed Franklin surveillance photos. "Boyer's running a team. At least 6 operatives that I've identified, maybe more. Former military, ex-intelligence. A couple of them look like they might be mercenaries. They're rotating surveillance on you, your wife, even your daughter's school." The photos showed various men and women positioned around Franklin's neighborhood, his wife's hospital, Emma's elementary school. Professional surveillance, difficult to detect unless you knew what to look for. "They're mapping my life," Franklin said quietly. "Learning my vulnerabilities." "Exactly. And they're good at it. I almost missed 3 of them." Lloyd swiped to another photo. "But here's what worries me most." The image showed a woman in her 30s, dark hair, athletic build, photographed outside Emma's school. She wore a visitor's badge and carried a clipboard. "Who is she?" "Calls herself Jennifer Petty. Claims to be from the school district doing a safety assessment. Except I ran her face through some databases. She's actually Carla Savage, former Army intelligence officer with a dishonorable discharge for conduct unbecoming. Specifically, she was caught running an unauthorized surveillance operation on civilian targets. After discharge, she disappeared into the private sector." Franklin felt ice in his veins. "Boyer put her near my daughter. Not just near. She's been volunteering as a classroom aide for the past week. Direct access to Emma, all under the guise of helping the school improve security protocols. Ironic, right?" Franklin's hands clenched into fists. "I need to get her away from my daughter. Now." "Already handled." Lloyd smiled grimly. "I have a contact in the actual school district office. She made some calls, raised questions about this unauthorized safety assessment. Ms. Petty was escorted off school grounds this morning and banned from the premises pending investigation. Boyer will know we're onto him." "Good. Let him know. Right now, he thinks he's hunting you. Time to remind him that you're not prey, Franklin. You're a predator who's been trying to be civilized." Lloyd was right. Franklin had spent 3 years trying to be a normal civilian, a good husband and father, someone who'd left violence behind. But Brian Boyer had dragged him back into the world of shadows and blood. If Boyer wanted a war, Franklin would give him one. "I need equipment," Franklin said. "Surveillance gear, secure communications, weapons if necessary. And I need information on Boyer's team. Names, backgrounds, weaknesses." Lloyd grinned. "I run a private security firm, brother. I've got everything you need. Consider it on loan, free of charge. Boyer made this personal when he started operating in my city without permission." Over the next hour, Lloyd laid out everything he'd gathered. Boyer's team consisted of 6 primary operatives plus Nadine, who was now in police custody. Each operative had a specific role. Brian Boyer himself served as mission commander, coordinating from his Portland house. Tyrone Moss, former Marine sniper, dishonorable discharge for excessive force. Boyer's head of security and likely his most dangerous enforcer. Carla Savage, surveillance specialist, recently removed from Emma School. Billy Waters, tech expert, handles electronic surveillance and hacking. Lester Kemp, logistics coordinator, manages safe houses and equipment. Mel Morrison, psychological operations specialist, the one who likely planned the emotional manipulation aspects of Boyer's revenge. Renee York, wild card, deep cover operative whose exact role Lloyd hadn't determined yet. This is a professional military-style operation, Franklin observed. Boyer's not just getting revenge. He's running this like a black ops mission, which means you need to think the same way. You can't just defend against him. You need to go on offense, disrupt his operations, turn his team against him. Franklin studied the dossiers, his tactical mind already forming plans. What about weaknesses? Everyone has them. Lloyd pointed to Tyrone Moss's file. The sniper has a gambling problem, deep in debt to some serious people in Seattle. I'm guessing Boyer's paying him well, but debt like that, it's leverage. Carla Savage, her brother is currently deployed in Syria. She's been trying to get him reassigned stateside, pulling every string she can find. She's desperate to bring him home safely. Franklin saw it immediately. She'd do anything for her brother. And Mel Morrison, the PSYOPs guy, he's got a nasty cocaine habit he thinks he's hiding. Billy Waters is clean legally, but he's been making very stupid posts on dark web forums under a pseudonym. Posts that could get him arrested if the FBI knew where to look. You're suggesting we blackmail Boyer's team? I'm suggesting you give them better options than loyalty to a revenge-obsessed lunatic. Break his team apart, Franklin. Make them question whether Boyer's crusade is worth their careers, their freedom, their lives. It was elegant, strategic, exactly the kind of multi-layered operation Franklin had excelled at during his intelligence days. But it required patience, precision, and a willingness to play dirty. I'll need Shannon's help, Franklin said. She can approach Carla's brother's command, use her medical contacts to create a transfer request that looks legitimate. Your wife's involved? She insisted. And honestly, Lloyd, I need someone I can trust completely. Shannon's smart, capable, and she knows the stakes better than anyone. Lloyd nodded approvingly. Good woman. You're lucky. I know. They spent another hour planning logistics. Lloyd would provide equipment and intelligence support. Franklin would begin approaching Boyer's team members, one by one, offering them ways out of Boyer's operation. Agent Lang would provide legal cover where possible, turning their information into official FBI cases that justified arrests or immunity deals. But as Franklin prepared to leave, Lloyd grabbed his arm. Brother, I need to say this. Boyer's not going to give up just because you dismantle his team. This is blood feud, generational hatred. Even if you take away his resources, he'll keep coming. You understand what that means. Franklin understood perfectly. This conflict had only one real ending. Brian Boyer in custody, dead, or so broken he couldn't continue his vendetta. There was no negotiated peace, no middle ground. I know, Franklin said quietly. I'm ready to finish it. Then I've got you back. All the way. Franklin returned home to find Shannon had already been productive. She contacted her nursing supervisor and arranged for a month of family leave using accrued vacation time and emergency provisions. She'd also called her brother, a lawyer in Boston, to discuss restraining orders and legal options against Boyer. The restraining order won't help much, her brother had told her. Boyer hasn't technically threatened you directly. Nadine acted alone, according to the police report. Unless you can prove Boyer's involvement, which you can't without evidence that would require illegal surveillance to obtain, the courts won't give you protection. Then we gather that evidence, Shannon said firmly after relating the conversation to Franklin. Lloyd's equipment can help with that, right? Yes, but it's a fine line. Evidence obtained through illegal surveillance won't be admissible in court. We need to be smart about this. Emma appeared in the doorway, eavesdropping. Franklin noticed her immediately. Sweetheart, you should be in bed. I heard you talking about the bad people. Are you going to fight them? Franklin knelt to his daughter's level. I'm going to make sure they can't hurt us anymore. That's different from fighting. But if they won't stop, Emma's voice was small but steady. If they won't stop, you have to make them. I understand, Dad. Sometimes bad people don't listen to words. Shannon looked stricken at her daughter's words, but Franklin saw the truth in them. Emma's gift of intuition extended beyond sensing immediate danger. She understood the fundamental nature of conflict, the sometimes brutal calculus of survival. Go back to bed, Emma. Your mom and I will handle this. After Emma left, Shannon's voice was tight with emotion. Our 6-year-old just gave us permission to do violence. Do you realize how wrong that is? How much this has already damaged her? I know, which is why we end it. Quickly and completely. The next morning, Franklin put the plan in motion. His first target was Billy Waters, the tech specialist. Lloyd's intelligence indicated Billy frequented a gaming cafe in downtown Portland every Thursday afternoon, his one predictable public appearance. Franklin arrived early, positioning himself at a corner table with a laptop. When Billy entered, a thin man in his late 20s with perpetual dark circles under his eyes, Franklin was ready. He'd set up a simple trap, a fake FBI bulletin board in the cafe's public Wi-Fi portal, featuring Billy's dark web posts alongside his real identity. Anyone who connected to the cafe's Wi-Fi would see it, Billy included. Franklin watched as Billy opened his laptop, connected to the Wi-Fi, and went pale. His eyes darted around the cafe, looking for threats, for FBI agents, for anyone who might have seen. That's when Franklin approached. Billy Waters? Mind if I sit? Billy looked ready to run. Relax. I'm not FBI. I'm Franklin Bean. Recognition and fear flooded Billy's face. I don't know what you're talking about. Save it. I know you work for Brian Boyer. I know about Phantom Solutions and your dark web activities. And I know the FBI is about 48 hours from raiding your apartment based on those posts. Franklin leaned back casually. Unless someone gives him a reason not to. What do you want? Information. Full access to Boyer's surveillance network, his communications, his plans. In exchange, those FBI bulletins disappear, and I personally deliver a hard drive full of evidence against Boyer that gives you immunity as a cooperating witness. Billy's mind was visibly racing, calculating odds and outcomes. Boyer will kill me if he finds out. Boyer's going to prison or worse in the next few weeks. The only question is whether you go down with him or walk away free. Your choice, Billy. But decide fast because that Wi-Fi portal is going to get noticed soon. Franklin could see the exact moment Billy's resistance broke. Fear of imprisonment, fear of Boyer's revenge, exhaustion from living in the shadows. It all collapsed into desperate relief that someone was offering him an exit. What do you need? Chapter 5. Turning the Tide. Billy Waters proved to be a goldmine of information once his loyalty flipped. Over the next week, working from a secure location in Lloyd's private security office, Franklin and Shannon reviewed everything Billy provided. Encrypted communications between Boyer and his team, surveillance footage from cameras planted throughout Franklin's neighborhood, financial records showing payments to operatives, and most importantly, Boyer's master plan. The plan was chilling in its sophistication. Boyer had orchestrated a 12-month campaign designed to systematically destroy everyone connected to Operation Midnight Sun, saving Franklin for last. Each target was to suffer maximum psychological damage before their eventual death or ruin. Franklin's suffering was to be the crown jewel, watching his family harmed, his reputation destroyed, his sanity eroded, all while knowing Boyer was responsible and being unable to prove it or stop it. He's been planning this for 5 years, Shannon said, scrolling through dated files. Since before Emma was even born. He's obsessed. Franklin studied Boyer's psychological profile, assembled from therapy notes Billy had hacked from a psychiatrist's files. Severe PTSD from the Kandahar attack, survivor's guilt compounded by narcissistic tendencies, and a savior complex where Boyer saw himself as the righteous avenger of his murdered family. He genuinely believes he's the hero of this story, Franklin observed. In his mind, we're the terrorists and he's the freedom fighter. Agent Lang arrived that afternoon to review the evidence. Her expression shifted from professional interest to grim satisfaction as she absorbed the full scope of Boyer's crimes. "This is enough," she said finally. "With Billy's testimony and this documentation, I can get warrants for Boyer's arrest, seizure of Phantom Solutions assets, and raids on his properties. We can dismantle his entire operation." "Not yet," Franklin said. Lang stared at him. "Excuse me? Boyer has contingencies." Billy confirmed that if Boyer is arrested or disappears, dead man switches activate. Automated systems that release damaging information about his targets, including fabricated evidence designed to destroy reputations. People on his revenge list will be publicly accused of war crimes, corruption, pedophilia. Even if the accusations are later proven false, the damage would be permanent. "So we're supposed to just let him continue?" "No, we're supposed to be smarter than him." Franklin pulled up a network diagram showing Boyer's team and support structure. "We've already flipped Billy. Now we systematically turn the rest of his team, isolate him, and when he's completely alone with no resources and no backup, then we take him down with all his contingencies disabled." Shannon added, "And we make sure he can never threaten our family again." Lang considered this. "How long?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. We're already making progress." The next target was Carla Savage. Shannon took the lead on this operation, using her medical network to contact the commanding officer of Carla's deployed brother, Vernon Savage. Through careful manipulation of military medical transfer protocols, Shannon arranged for Vernon to be reassigned to a stateside posting for family emergency medical care, specifically his sister's fictional diagnosis with early-stage cancer requiring family support. When Carla received notification of her brother's imminent return, she broke down. Lloyd's surveillance team captured her crying in her car, clutching the transfer orders like they were precious artifacts. Franklin approached her the next day at a park, alone and vulnerable. "Carla Savage, we need to talk about your brother." She spun toward him, hand moving toward a concealed weapon. Franklin beamed. "Easy. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" "Your brother's transfer is real. He's coming home. But the medical diagnosis that justified it, that's flexible. It can remain on file, keeping him stateside permanently, or it can be revealed as fabricated, sending him back to Syria and possibly court-martialed for fraudulent transfer." Carla's face went white. "You can't. I can, and I will, unless you help me. Brian Boyer is finished. His operation is compromised, his team is falling apart, and the FBI is preparing to move against him. You can go down with him, or you can walk away clean with your brother safe at home. Your choice." The calculation was simple and brutal. Family versus loyalty to a man who'd hired her for a revenge scheme she probably didn't fully believe in. Carla made the smart choice. "What do you need?" With Carla providing internal intelligence and Billy controlling Boyer's electronic surveillance, Franklin now had eyes inside the enemy camp. He learned Boyer was growing paranoid, suspecting betrayal, but unable to identify the source. The team had weekly meetings at Boyer's Portland house, where strategy was discussed and operations planned. Franklin decided to attend the next meeting. Uninvited. Lloyd thought he was insane. You're going to walk into Boyer's house, surrounded by his security, and what? Have a conversation? Exactly. I'm going to make him an offer. What kind of offer? Franklin smiled coldly. The kind where he realizes he's already lost. He just doesn't know it yet. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday evening. Franklin prepared meticulously, wearing a hidden microphone provided by Agent Lang, carrying a concealed weapon, and having Lloyd's team positioned around Boyer's house as backup. Tyrone Moss, the former Marine sniper, was on door duty when Franklin walked up to Boyer's gate at precisely 8 p.m. Tyrone's hand moved to his weapon immediately. Easy, Franklin said, hands visible and empty. I'm here to see Brian. Tell him Franklin Bean wants to negotiate. Tyrone spoke into a radio, received a response that clearly shocked him, and opened the gate. He says, come in, but you're getting searched. The search was thorough and professional. They found Franklin's concealed weapon and the microphone. Both were confiscated. Franklin had expected this. There were decoys. The real recording device was embedded in his watch, virtually undetectable without specialized equipment. Brian Boyer waited in an expensive living room that looked like it had been designed by someone with too much money and no personal taste. Abstract art that probably cost thousands, minimalist furniture that prioritized form over function, and floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of Portland city lights. Boyer himself was smaller than Franklin expected, maybe 5'9", slender build, with the kind of expensive casual clothing that screamed tech entrepreneur. But his eyes were what Franklin noticed most: intelligent, intense, and burning with barely contained rage. "Franklin Bean," Boyer said, his voice surprisingly calm. "You have impressive balls, walking into my home. You've been in mine. Seems only fair to return the visit." Boyer's team surrounded them: Tyrone, Mel Morrison, Lester Kemp, and Renee York. Carla was notably absent, having called in sick. Billy Waters sat at a laptop in the corner, carefully avoiding eye contact with Franklin. "I assume you're here to beg for your family's safety," Boyer said. "To offer me some pathetic deal where I leave them alone in exchange for your suicide or surrender." "No, I'm here to tell you it's over." Boyer laughed. "Over? Franklin, I'm just getting started." Nadine was the opening move. "You've been living in terror for a week, jumping at shadows, wondering when the next attack comes. And it will come. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. You can't protect them forever. You're right that I can't protect them forever, which is why I'm going to remove the threat instead." Franklin's voice was cold, controlled. "Billy, show him." Billy Waters hesitated for only a second before typing commands. The large television screen on Boyer's wall flickered to life, displaying evidence. Encrypted communications proving Boyer's involvement in 7 murders. Financial records showing payments to operatives for illegal activities. Surveillance footage from Boyer's own cameras showing him planning attacks. Boyer's face went pale, then red with fury. "Billy, what the fuck?" "I'm sorry," Billy stammered. "The FBI has everything. They offered me immunity. I couldn't go to prison for you, man. You traitorous little—" "And it's not just Billy," Franklin interrupted. "Carla's brother is home safe, and she's already given her statement to Agent Lang. Your entire electronic surveillance network is compromised. Your financial accounts are frozen pending FBI investigation. Warrants for your arrest are being prepared. It's over, Brian. You lost." For a moment, Boyer looked genuinely shocked. Then his expression shifted to something predatory. "You think this ends with arrests? With prison? Even if I go away, Franklin, I have people. Loyal people who will finish what I started." "You mean these people?" Franklin gestured at the remaining team members. "Tyrone, how's your gambling debt? Still owe the Markov family 200 grand? I wonder what they'd say if I told them you've got a safe full of cash in your apartment, money you've been hiding from them." Tyrone's hand moved to his gun, but Franklin continued calmly. "Mel, that cocaine habit is going to get you killed. Your dealer is a confidential informant for the DEA. They know about every purchase you've made for the past 6 months. And Lester, your daughter, doesn't know her father runs logistics for a domestic terrorism operation. How do you think she'd react if she found out?" The room had gone deadly quiet. "You're all looking at serious prison time," Franklin said. "Unless you walk away now. Agent Lang is waiting outside with immunity deals for anyone who testifies against Boyer. First come, first served. After that, you're on your own." Boyer screamed, "Don't listen to him. He's bluffing. We're family." "Family?" Franklin laughed bitterly. "Brian, you recruited these people with money and threats. The moment things get difficult, they'll abandon you. Just like you're about to be abandoned." Mel Morrison was the first to move, walking toward the door without a word. Lester Kemp followed. Then Tyrone Moss, after a long look at Boyer's furious face. "Traitors!" Boyer shrieked. "All of you. You'll what?" Franklin stepped closer. "You're alone, Brian. No team, no resources, no leverage. The FBI is outside. You can surrender now and maybe negotiate a lighter sentence, or you can resist and make everything worse." But Boyer's expression shifted from rage to something terrifying: calm, cold calculation. His hand moved to a device on the table, a remote control of some kind. "If I'm going down," Boyer said quietly, "you're coming with me." Chapter 6: The Dead Man's Switch. The remote in Boyer's hand was sleek and black, with a single red button under Boyer's thumb. Franklin's military training immediately recognized it as a dead man's switch, the kind of trigger that, once activated, required constant pressure or it would detonate something catastrophic. "Everybody freeze," Boyer commanded, his voice steady now, almost eerily calm. "Franklin, I told you I was always 3 steps ahead. Did you really think I'd let you dismantle my operation without a contingency?" Lloyd's voice crackled in Franklin's hidden watch earpiece, too quiet for anyone else to hear. "We've got heat signatures in the basement. Looks like explosives. Serious amount. Franklin, that house is wired to blow." Franklin kept his expression neutral, his voice calm. "Brian, what did you do?" "C4 charges throughout the foundation, packed with ball bearings and nails for maximum fragmentation. Enough to level this house and damage the surrounding properties. If I release this button, we all die, along with my lovely neighbors, a few of whom have young children. Collateral damage, just like Kandahar." Franklin's mind raced. The house was in a dense residential neighborhood. An explosion of that magnitude would kill dozens of innocents. Boyer had turned himself into a suicide bomber, and there was no telling if he was bluffing. "This wasn't part of your revenge plan," Franklin said carefully. "You wanted me to suffer, not die in an explosion. Plans change." Boyer's smile was unhinged now. "You forced my hand, Franklin. You turned my team against me, compromised my operations, backed me into a corner. So now we have new terms. Your family dies. You die. I die. Everyone connected to Operation Midnight Sun dies. The account of our deaths will be national news, and the evidence I've planted will suggest you were the terrorist all along, planning an attack that I heroically tried to stop. No one will believe that, won't they? Ex-military intelligence operative with PTSD, access to explosives, history of violence. I've spent months building a digital trail that points to you. Searches for bomb-making materials on your home computer, which I hacked and planted. Purchases of suspicious materials traced to stolen credit cards that end up at your house. When this building explodes, and they find my body alongside yours, the narrative will be clear. Franklin Bean, disturbed veteran, targeted the innocent tech entrepreneur who was about to expose his war crimes. Franklin felt a chill. Boyer had planned for this scenario, anticipated his own possible defeat, and prepared a final revenge that would destroy Franklin's reputation even in death. "Agent Lang won't believe it. She has all your evidence. Evidence that mysteriously disappears from FBI servers in the next few minutes, thanks to Billy's back doors that he didn't tell you about. Right, Billy?" Billy Waters looked terrified, clearly trapped between 2 bad options. "I kept insurance," Boyer continued. "Billy didn't give you everything. The most damaging files, the ones that prove my innocence and your guilt, are about to be sent to every major news outlet along with this building's spectacular explosion. Your wife and children will spend the rest of their lives known as the family of a domestic terrorist." Franklin's watch earpiece crackled again. "Lang's team is moving in. They're going to breach in 60 seconds. Franklin, get out of there." But Franklin couldn't leave. Not with Boyer holding a dead man's switch that could kill innocents. And not with the digital evidence that could destroy his family's future. He needed to end this here, now, completely. "Brian," Franklin said softly, "I'm sorry about Kandahar. I'm sorry about your family. That operation was wrong, and I've carried that guilt every day since." Boyer's expression flickered with surprise. "I should have questioned the intelligence. I should have aborted the mission when we saw civilians. I was following orders, but that's not an excuse. Your mother, your sisters, your cousins, they died because I made bad decisions. And you have every right to hate me for that." "Shut up." Boyer's voice cracked. "You don't get to apologize. You don't get to be human. You're the monster who destroyed my family. I'm both, Brian. I'm the man who made terrible mistakes. And I'm the father desperately trying to protect his children. Just like your Uncle Alvin was trying to protect his family by working with us. He didn't want to betray his country. He wanted to save the people he loved from Taliban violence. He was a traitor. He was a man caught between impossible choices. Just like you are now." Franklin took a careful step closer. "You can push that button. Kill us all, destroy my reputation, hurt my family. You'll get your revenge. But those children in the neighboring houses? They're innocent, just like your sisters were innocent. Are you really going to kill children, Brian? Are you going to become the same kind of monster you think I am? Boyer's hand trembled on the remote. Or you can let me help you. Put down the remote. Surrender to Agent Lang. Testify about the intelligence failures that led to Kandahar. Force the CIA to admit their mistakes. Get justice the right way, not through more death. For a moment, Franklin thought he'd reached him. Boyer's eyes showed conflict, pain, a desperate desire for someone to offer him an escape from his own hatred. Then Billy Waters made a fatal mistake. He lunged for Boyer, trying to grab the remote. Boyer's thumb lifted from the button. Franklin had perhaps 2 seconds. His military training compressed time, slowing the world to crystalline clarity. He saw Boyer's thumb rising, saw Billy's failed grab, saw the trigger mechanism about to activate. Franklin's body moved on pure instinct. He drew the backup weapon he'd hidden in his boot. The one Boyer's search had missed because Lloyd had designed it to pass as a medical alert device. He aimed and fired in one smooth motion, hitting Boyer's hand with precision that came from thousands of hours of training. The remote flew from Boyer's grasp, his thumb still frozen in position from Franklin's shot. It clattered across the floor toward the windows. Boyer screamed in pain and rage, clutching his shattered hand. Tyrone Moss, still in the room despite his earlier exit toward the door, moved with combat reflexes, diving for the remote, fingers reaching. Lloyd Barrera crashed through the window in a shower of glass, tackling Tyrone mid-dive. They rolled across the floor, struggling for the remote that lay between them. Franklin was already moving, throwing himself toward the device. His fingers closed around it just as Tyrone broke free from Lloyd and lunged again. Franklin rolled, brought his weapon up, and fired twice into Tyrone's center mass. The former Marine dropped, dead before he hit the floor. Franklin held the remote, his thumb firmly on the button, maintaining pressure. His heart hammered as he realized he was now the one holding the dead man's switch. If he lifted his thumb, the house would explode. FBI agents poured through the doors and windows, Agent Lang shouting orders. Bomb techs appeared with equipment, surrounding Franklin carefully. Mr. Bean, one of the techs said calmly, I need you to stay very still. We're going to disarm this system, but it's going to take time. Can you hold that button? Franklin's thumb was already cramping, adrenaline making his hand shake. How long? 20 minutes, maybe 30. The system is sophisticated. 20 minutes of maintaining perfect pressure on a button while bomb technicians worked around him. Franklin's military discipline kicked in. He focused on breathing, on staying absolutely still, on the feeling of the button under his thumb. Shannon's voice came through a phone that Agent Lang held to Franklin's ear. I'm here, baby. I'm right outside with Emma and Jack. We're safe. Just hold on. I love you, Franklin managed to say. I love you too. Don't you dare let go of that button. Around him, the bomb techs worked with quiet efficiency, tracing wires, analyzing circuits. Boyer had been dragged away, still screaming about Franklin being a murderer, about justice, about how this wasn't over. Billy Waters sat in cuffs, looking shell-shocked. Lloyd stood guard with other FBI agents, his eyes never leaving Franklin. His presence was solid, reassuring, the battle buddy who'd always had Franklin's back. After 18 minutes that felt like 18 hours, the head bomb tech finally spoke. We've located the primary detonator. Cutting it now. A snip of wire cutters. A held breath. Nothing exploded. Secondary trigger. Disengaged. Mr. Bean, you can release the button. Franklin's thumb lifted slowly, every muscle tense for the explosion that didn't come. The remote fell from his nerveless fingers as his legs gave out. Lloyd caught it before he hit the floor. Got you, brother. You're good. It's over. Outside, Shannon rushed to Franklin as FBI agents checked him for injuries. She wrapped her arms around him with desperate strength, tears streaming down her face. Emma and Jack were being watched by Lloyd's security team a safe distance away, but Emma was crying, her intuition telling her how close they'd all come to disaster. Agent Lang approached as the paramedics insisted on checking Franklin's vitals. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. You know that, right? Did you get everything? Franklin asked. The evidence, the files, every bit of it. Boyer's going away from multiple life sentences. Murder, attempted murder, terrorism, the works. And we recovered his kill switch data before it could transmit. Your reputation is safe. Franklin closed his eyes in relief. The team members who walked out, already in custody, giving statements. They're cooperating fully in exchange for reduced charges. You broke Boyer's operation completely, Franklin. But as the FBI led Brian Boyer to a waiting vehicle, the man turned back to look at Franklin with eyes full of undiminished hatred. This isn't finished, Boyer screamed. You hear me, Franklin? My family will never stop. You killed my mother, my sisters, and now you've taken everything from me. We will have our revenge. Agent Lang's expression turned grim. He's not entirely wrong. Boyer has extended family, people who might share his grudge. We'll monitor them, but I'll never be completely safe, Franklin finished. I know. As the FBI vehicle drove away with Boyer inside, Franklin held his family close and wondered if the cycle of revenge would ever truly end. Chapter 7. Shadows of the Past. 3 weeks after Brian Boyer's arrest, Franklin sat in a secure FBI conference room watching the man's interrogation through one-way glass. Boyer had barely spoken since his capture, maintaining an eerie silence broken only by occasional smiles when questioned about potential accomplices or future threats. Agent Lang stood beside Franklin, reviewing updated intelligence reports. We've been monitoring Boyer's extended family and associates. Most of them seem genuinely uninvolved in his revenge campaign. But there's one person who concerns me. She pulled up a photograph of a woman in her 60s, elegant and sharp-eyed. Ethel Boyer, Brian's paternal aunt. She survived the Kandahar attack along with Brian and his grandmother. After the incident, she moved to Germany, married a wealthy businessman, and kept a low profile. Until 2 weeks ago. What happened 2 weeks ago? She liquidated significant assets, sold property, cashed out investments. Approximately $8 million moved into untraceable offshore accounts. Then she disappeared. German authorities can't locate her, and she hasn't used her passport under her legal name. Franklin felt the familiar weight of threat assessment settling onto his shoulders. You think she's coming for me? I think Brian Boyer's arrest activated something. Either she had standing orders to continue his vendetta if he was captured, or she's taking matters into her own hands. Either way, we've lost track of her, and that's a problem. Shannon appeared in the doorway, her expression troubled. She'd taken an extended leave from the hospital, helping Franklin manage the aftermath of Boyer's operation while keeping their children safe. The stress showed in the lines around her eyes, the tension in her shoulders. Franklin, we need to talk. It's about Emma. They moved to a private office. Shannon pulled out her phone, showing Franklin a drawing that Emma had brought home from school. It depicted a family, Franklin, Shannon, Emma, and baby Jack, surrounded by dark, angular figures with red eyes. She drew this in art class today. Her teacher called me, concerned. Emma told her these are the angry people who are coming. She's been having nightmares again, sensing danger. Her sixth sense is screaming at her that something bad is approaching. Franklin studied the drawing, noting details. 5 dark figures, each distinct. One larger than the others, positioned centrally. Emma's intuition had saved them before. He wasn't going to dismiss it now. Show this to Agent Lang, Franklin said. Emma might be picking up on Ethel Boyer's team. If she's assembling operatives like Brian did, Emma could be sensing their intent. But when Lang saw the drawing, her face went pale. Franklin, count those figures. 5 dark figures. Brian Boyer was in custody. Nadine Boyer was imprisoned. Carla Savage and Billy Waters had flipped. Tyrone Moss was dead. That accounted for Boyer's known team. These are new players, Lang said grimly. Ethel has recruited her own operatives. And if Emma's sensing 5 distinct threats, that's a military-style unit. Professional, coordinated, dangerous. Loy Barrera arrived an hour later with more troubling news. His security contacts in Europe had identified 3 individuals connected to Ethel Boyer, all former members of various special forces units, all recently unemployed and looking for high-paying contracts. We've got Arthur Weeks, ex-SAS with expertise in explosives. Jackie Browning, former French Foreign Legion, specializes in close-quarters combat. And Vernon Shaw, no relation to the detective, ex-Delta Force, now working as a private military contractor. All three disappeared from their usual haunts around the same time Ethel liquidated her assets. That's only three, Shannon pointed out. Emma drew 5 figures. The other 2 haven't been identified yet, Lloyd admitted. But if Ethel recruited people of this caliber, we're dealing with a significantly more dangerous threat than Brian Boyer's team. These aren't troubled intelligence officers and tech guys. These are elite warriors being paid to kill. Franklin studied the profiles of Ethel's known recruits. These men weren't motivated by ideology or personal revenge. They were mercenaries, pure and simple. That made them both more dangerous and more predictable. Mercenaries had weaknesses: money, self-preservation, lack of personal investment in the mission. We need to find them before they strike, Franklin said. And we need to understand Ethel's plan. Brian wanted to make me suffer psychologically. What does Ethel want? Agent Lang pulled up Ethel Boyer's background file. Ethel was never as close to the family as Brian was. She was Alvin's older sister, somewhat estranged from the family before the Kandahar attack. But after the attack, she became the primary caretaker for Brian and her elderly mother. She blamed American intelligence for destroying her family, specifically blamed the military culture that created operations like Midnight Sunday. So her grudge is broader than Brian's, Shannon observed. She's not just targeting Franklin, she's targeting the system. Maybe, Lang said thoughtfully, or maybe she's smarter than Brian. His mistake was telegraphing his moves, try to maximize psychological damage. Ethel might go for a clean, efficient kill. No games, no elaborate revenge fantasy. Just professional elimination of targets. That night, Franklin couldn't sleep. He walked the perimeter of their house, checking security systems that Lloyd had upgraded to military-grade specifications. Motion sensors, infrared cameras, pressure plates on the ground around the property. The house was a fortress. But fortresses could be breached by determined attackers with sufficient resources and skill. Emma found him at 2 a.m., standing guard by the living room window. "Dad, I can't sleep either." Franklin picked up his daughter, holding her close. "Bad dreams. Not dreams. Feelings. The angry people are getting closer. They're planning something." "What are they planning, sweetheart?" Emma's small face scrunched in concentration. "Not here. Somewhere else. Somewhere you go without us. They want to hurt you away from home." Franklin's tactical mind immediately understood. Attacking him at home meant confronting upgraded security and risking civilian casualties. But catching him in transit, at work, or at some public location offered better odds for professional killers. "Thank you, Emma. That helps me a lot. Promise you'll be careful?" "I promise." The next morning, Franklin met with Lloyd and Agent Lang to adjust their strategy. "We've been thinking defensively, protecting the house and family. But Ethel's team will target me in public, somewhere I'm vulnerable. So let's give them what they want." "You want to use yourself as bait," Lang said flatly. "Controlled bait. We set up a scenario that appears vulnerable, but is actually a trap. Draw out Ethel's operatives, capture them, force them to give up Ethel's location." Lloyd grinned. "Now you're thinking like the operator I remember. What's the bait?" "Brian Boyer's trial starts in 2 weeks. I'm scheduled to give testimony about Operation Midnight Sun, the intelligence failures, everything. It's public record, announced in advance. I'll be entering the courthouse, exposed in transit, perfect target. The FBI will have courthouse security," Lang objected, "which Ethel's team will plan around. But what they won't know is that we'll have our own counter-operation running. Lloyd's people positioned as civilians, federal agents in plain clothes, and me wearing body armor under my suit. When they make their move, we take them down." It was risky, potentially suicidal, but it was also proactive, seizing initiative rather than waiting for the enemy to strike on their terms. Franklin had learned in Afghanistan that the best defense was often aggressive offense. "I'm in," Lloyd said immediately. "I can have 15 operators positioned around the courthouse, plus rooftop overwatch. We'll turn that building into a kill box for anyone stupid enough to attack." Lang hesitated longer. If this goes wrong, if civilians get caught in the crossfire, then we make sure it doesn't go wrong, Franklin said. We control every variable we can, prepare for contingencies, and execute with precision. This is what we do, Agent Lang. This is how we end threats. Reluctantly, Lang agreed. Over the next week, they planned every detail of the operation. Franklin would arrive at the courthouse at 9 a.m., using a route that appeared routine, but was actually designed to funnel potential attackers into predetermined kill zones. Lloyd's team would be positioned as maintenance workers, delivery drivers, pedestrians, invisible but lethal if needed. FBI tactical units would be on standby, ready to move the moment shooting started. Shannon hated the plan, but understood its necessity. "Promise me you'll come home," she said the night before the trial. "I promise. This ends tomorrow, one way or another." But that night, Emma woke screaming from a nightmare so intense it brought Franklin running to her room. She was pale, shaking, tears streaming down her face. "Emma, what did you see?" "Not you, Dad. Not you, they're going to hurt." "Then who?" Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "Mom." Chapter 8. The Double Game. Franklin's blood turned to ice. "Shannon? They're targeting Shannon." Emma nodded frantically. "Tomorrow. At the hospital. The angry people know you're going to the courthouse, but that's not where they'll attack. They're going after Mom while you're gone." Franklin's tactical mind raced through the implications. Ethel Boyer was indeed smarter than her nephew. She'd anticipated Franklin would expect an attack on himself, would prepare defenses around his own movements. So she was targeting the vulnerability he couldn't fully protect, his wife, working at a public hospital with hundreds of people moving through daily. He called Agent Lang immediately. "We've been played. The courthouse is a feint. The real target is Shannon at Portland General Hospital." Lang was silent for a moment. "How do you know?" "Emma. Her intuition. It's been right every time, and I'm not betting my wife's life against it." "Franklin, we can't redesign the entire operation based on a 6-year-old's nightmare." "Then don't. Keep the courthouse plan in place. But I need a team at the hospital now. Full security sweep, plainclothes agents, the works." Lloyd, listening on speakerphone, interjected. "I'll pull half my team from courthouse duty and reposition them at the hospital. If Emma's right, we'll be ready. If she's wrong, we still have sufficient coverage at the courthouse." Shannon, awakened by the commotion, looked terrified. "I'm not going to work tomorrow." "Problem solved." "That's what Ethel wants," Franklin countered. "She wants us scared, reactive, making panicked decisions. If you don't show up to work, she'll know we're on her plan. She'll adapt, change tactics, and we lose our chance to end this." "So you want me to walk into a trap?" "I want you to be bait, with a full security team hidden around you. Lloyd's best operators will be watching every angle. Agent Lang will have FBI tactical units on standby. You'll be the most protected person in Portland." Shannon's nursing instincts warred with her fear. She hated being used as bait, but she also understood the logic. If they didn't stop Ethel Boyer tomorrow, they'd be running for the rest of their lives. "All right," she said finally, "but I'm carrying one of Lloyd's weapons, and I want a panic button that brings the entire cavalry running." "Done," Lloyd said immediately. They spent the rest of the night planning 2 simultaneous operations. Franklin would proceed to the courthouse as planned, drawing attention and potentially catching any of Ethel's team who didn't know about the hospital operation. Shannon would go to her nursing shift with invisible protection, acting as bait for the real attack. Emma stayed home with a security detail guarding her and baby Jack. Franklin knelt beside his daughter before leaving. "Thank you for warning us, sweetheart. You might have saved Mom's life. Will you save her too, Dad? I'll do everything I can." Portland General Hospital was a sprawling complex with multiple entrances, parking structures, and thousands of daily visitors. Lloyd's team had identified 12 critical points where an attack might originate. Operators were positioned at each point, disguised as visitors, patients, or hospital staff. Shannon arrived at 7 a.m. for her shift, wearing body armor under her scrubs and carrying a concealed Glock 19 in her medical bag. Agent Lang had positioned FBI agents throughout the emergency department where Shannon worked disguised as patients with minor injuries. Franklin, meanwhile, drove toward the courthouse in an armored vehicle that looked like his normal SUV. His route was monitored by multiple teams, every intersection watched, every potential sniper position covered. If Ethel's team attacked him, they'd walk into a professional counter-ambush. But as 8 a.m. passed, then 9 a.m., there was no sign of enemy movement at either location. Lloyd's voice came through Franklin's earpiece. Something's wrong. Too quiet. Either they knew we were prepared, or... Shannon's panicked voice cut in on the emergency channel. Code Black. Armed intruders in the pediatric ward. Multiple shooters. They're taking hostages. Franklin's world tilted. The pediatric ward. Not the emergency department where Shannon worked. Not the courthouse where Franklin would testify. Ethel had targeted children. Innocent children who had nothing to do with Operation Midnight Sun. I'm moving. Lloyd's voice barked orders to his team. All units converge on pediatric. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Do not let them harm those kids. Franklin spun his vehicle around, racing toward the hospital. Agent Lang's voice came through. Franklin, stay out of this. You're not tactical anymore. You'll just get in the way. Those are children, Lang. I'm going. The hospital's pediatric ward was on the 4th floor, accessible by 2 stairwells and 1 elevator bank. Ethel's team had chosen their battlefield well, a location with limited access points, filled with vulnerable hostages, and guaranteed to create maximum chaos and emotional leverage. By the time Franklin arrived, Lloyd's first operators were already in position outside the pediatric ward. The situation was worse than they'd feared, for armed shooters had taken control of the entire floor, securing approximately 30 children and 15 staff members as hostages. Early reports suggested the shooters were professional, organized, and heavily armed. We've identified 3 of them, Lloyd reported grimly. Arthur Weeks, Jackie Browning, and Vernon Shaw from our threat assessment. But there's a 4th shooter we didn't anticipate. The security footage showed the 4th shooter clearly, a woman in her 60s with silver hair and cold eyes. Ethel Boyer herself, participating directly in the attack rather than commanding from a distance. Franklin felt sick. She's using children as shields. She knows we can't assault without risking massive casualties. Shannon's voice came through, strained but controlled. I'm in the pediatric ward. I was doing a consultation when they breached. Franklin, they have 16 children under the age of 5 in here, including 3 infants. Some of these kids are seriously ill, on ventilators and 4 medications. We can't just wait them out. Some of these children will die without proper medical care. Shannon, can they hear you? No. I'm in a supply closet, but they're systematically searching rooms. I have maybe 5 minutes before they find me. Agent Lang arrived with FBI tactical units and a hostage negotiator. The negotiator immediately established contact with Ethel Boyer, who answered on a hospital phone line. Mrs. Boyer, this is Agent Lang with the FBI. We need to establish terms for the safe release of these hostages. Ethel's voice was calm, almost pleasant. Good morning, Agent Lang. The terms are quite simple. Franklin Bean will come to this floor, unarmed, and surrender himself to me. In exchange, I'll release all the children and staff unharmed. You know I can't agree to that. Then children will start dying. 1 every 30 minutes until Franklin arrives. I'll start with the sickest ones, the ones who won't survive without immediate medical intervention. Their deaths will be on your hands. Franklin grabbed Lang's phone. Ethel, this is Franklin. Let the children go. Your fight is with me, not them. My fight is with the system that murdered my family, Franklin. Those children are Americans, just like my nieces were. Their parents will learn what it feels like to lose innocent children to American violence. It's poetic, really. This isn't justice. It's terrorism. One nation's terrorism is another's righteous vengeance. You taught me that in Kandahar. Now, come up here, Franklin, or I start executing toddlers. The line went dead. Lloyd grabbed Franklin's arm before he could move. You can't surrender to her. The moment you're up there, you become another hostage. She'll kill you and the children anyway. I have to try. No, you have to think tactically. We need to assault that floor, Take out all 4 shooters simultaneously before they can harm hostages. It's the only way. Agent Lang shook her head. My tactical teams need at least an hour to plan a coordinated assault on a hospital floor full of children. One mistake, one stray round, and we have dead kids on national news. We don't have an hour, Franklin said quietly. In 30 minutes, Ethel starts killing, and Shannon is up there. Vernon Shaw, the detective who'd taken Franklin's initial statement about Nadine, appeared with building schematics. There might be another option. The hospital's ventilation system has access crawl spaces running through every floor. Someone small and quiet could potentially move through those spaces to gather intelligence or even position for a rescue attempt. Franklin studied the schematics. The crawl spaces were narrow, uncomfortable, and would require someone with significant tactical experience to navigate while remaining undetected. Someone exactly like Franklin. I'll go, he said. Franklin, this is insane. I'm the only one here with the training and motivation. I can move through those crawl spaces, locate Shannon, get eyes on the shooter's positions, and report back for a tactical assault. Or, if the opportunity presents itself, I can take shots myself. Lloyd pulled out a small weapons kit. If you're doing this, you're doing it right. Suppressed pistol, infrared optics, communications gear, and you're wearing body armor. 20 minutes later, Franklin was crawling through dusty, claustrophobic ventilation shafts 4 feet above the pediatric ward ceiling. Through metal grates, he could see and hear everything below. Children crying, staff members trying to keep the kids calm, Ethel Boyer and her team methodically searching each room. Franklin's watch showed 28 minutes since the ultimatum. 2 minutes until Ethel started executing children. He reached the supply closet where Shannon was hiding and tapped gently on the vent grate. Shannon's tear-stained face appeared below, flooded with relief at seeing him. I'm getting you out, Franklin whispered. No, get the children out. I'm a grown woman. They're babies. Before Franklin could argue, Ethel's voice echoed through the ward. Time's up, Franklin. Since you didn't have the courage to face me, I'll demonstrate my sincerity. Franklin watched in horror through the grate as Ethel Boyer approached a room containing 3 infants in incubators. She raised her weapon toward the closest child. Franklin didn't think. He kicked out the vent grate, dropped through the ceiling in a controlled fall, and fired his suppressed pistol in one fluid motion. The round hit Ethel's gun hand, sending her weapon clattering across the floor. Then all hell broke loose. Chapter 9, the final act. Franklin's tactical training kicked in with crystal clarity. The moment he fired, he rolled behind a medical cart for cover, knowing Ethel's 3 shooters would converge on his position. Sure enough, gunfire erupted from 2 directions. Arthur Weeks from the nurse's station and Jackie Browning from the hallway. But Franklin had planned for this. The moment he dropped through the ceiling, Lloyd's team had moved into position. FBI tactical units breached the stairwell doors simultaneously, creating crossfire that caught Weeks and Browning in a devastating kill zone. Vernon Shaw, the ex-Delta Force operative, was smarter. He grabbed the nearest child, a 4-year-old girl, and used her as a human shield while backing toward the emergency exit. Everyone stands down, or the girl dies. Shaw's voice was professional calm. He was a mercenary calculating survival odds, not a fanatic committed to dying. Franklin saw Lloyd moving up the hallway behind Shaw, but the angle was wrong. Any shot risked hitting the child. Franklin needed to create an opening. Shaw, Franklin called out, stepping into view with his hands visible but weapon ready. How much is Ethel paying you? Because I'll triple it. Walk away now, leave the girl, and you can disappear with more money than she's offering. Shaw hesitated, his mercenary instincts warring with professional obligation. She paid up front for $1 million. You got $12 million lying around. I've got FBI immunity and a clean escape. Ethel's operation is finished. Weeks is dead. Browning is down. And the only question is whether you die with them or walk away rich and free. Prove it. Show me the immunity deal. Franklin nodded to Agent Lang, who held up a document. Full immunity for testimony against Ethel Boyer. You walk out of here, Vernon, but only if you release that child right now. Shaw's grip on the girl loosened fractionally. His tactical mind was calculating, analyzing odds. 4 million was a good payday, but not worth dying for. Immunity and freedom was even better. If I release her, what guarantee do I have you won't shoot me? My word as a former operator. You were dealt a force. You understand honor among soldiers, even enemies. Let the girl go, put down your weapon, and you walk out of here in FBI custody instead of a body bag. For a long moment, Shaw remained frozen. Then his professionalism won out over loyalty to an employer who'd sent him into a no-win situation. He gently released the child, who ran sobbing to her mother. Shaw placed his weapon on the ground and raised his hands. Smart choice, Franklin said. FBI agents immediately secured Shaw while Lloyd's team moved through the pediatric ward, ensuring all threats were neutralized. Arthur Weeks was dead from multiple gunshot wounds. Jackie Browning was wounded but alive, already demanding a lawyer. And Ethel Boyer sat against a wall, clutching her shattered hand, her face a mask of impotent rage. Shannon emerged from the supply closet, immediately moving to help the traumatized medical staff check on the children. Miraculously, no children had been seriously harmed. A few had minor injuries from the chaos, but all would recover. Franklin approached Ethel Boyer, his weapon holstered but ready. The woman who'd orchestrated this nightmare looked small and broken now, stripped of her mercenary army and grand revenge plan. "It's over, Ethel," Franklin said quietly. "Nothing is over," she spat. "My family is still dead. My nieces are still buried in Afghanistan because of you. Justice hasn't been served." "You're right. Justice hasn't been served. The people who provided faulty intelligence, who approved Operation Midnight Sun without proper verification, who created a system where civilian casualties were acceptable losses, they never face consequences. But terrorizing children isn't justice. It's just more violence." Ethel laughed bitterly. "You think you're different from me? You kill my family following orders. I try to kill yours following my conscience. We're the same, Franklin." "No," Franklin said firmly. "We're not. I live with the guilt of what happened at Kandahar. I left military intelligence because I couldn't stomach being part of that system anymore. I'm trying to be better. You're just perpetuating the cycle." FBI agents took Ethel into custody, along with the wounded Browning and the cooperative Shaw. Agent Lang approached Franklin as medical teams began evacuating the children to safer floors. "You did good work today, Franklin. Save a lot of lives. We got lucky. If Shaw hadn't taken the deal, if Ethel had been more willing to kill children. But she wasn't, and he did. You read the situation correctly and acted decisively. That's not luck, that's skill." Shannon found Franklin in the chaos, wrapping her arms around him with desperate strength. "It's really over? No more angry people coming. It's really over. Ethel was the last. Brian's in prison. His team is dead or in custody, and Ethel's operation is finished. What about their extended family? Other relatives who might want revenge?" Agent Lang overhead and answered, "We've been monitoring all of Alvin Boyer's surviving relatives. Most of them are just ordinary people trying to live their lives. Brian and Ethel were the only ones who turned their grief into vengeance. The rest have moved on." As FBI teams processed the scene and medical staff cared for the traumatized children, Franklin felt the weight of the past 3 weeks beginning to lift. Brian Boyer would spend life in prison. Ethel Boyer would join him. Their teams were dead, imprisoned, or cooperating with authorities. The threat to Franklin's family was finally, truly over. Detective Vernon Shaw, the Portland detective, not the mercenary, approached with a warm but tired smile. "Hell of a few weeks, Mr. Bean. For what it's worth, you handled this about as well as anyone could have. Not many people could have taken down 2 separate revenge operations and come out alive." Franklin shook his hand gratefully. Couldn't have done it without a lot of help. 2 weeks later, Franklin sat in a federal courtroom watching Brian Boyer's sentencing. The evidence was overwhelming. 7 counts of murder, 4 counts of attempted murder, terrorism charges, and a litany of other crimes. The judge showed no mercy. "Mr. Boyer, you have systematically destroyed lives in pursuit of your vendetta. You've weaponized your trauma. using your family's tragedy as justification for monstrous acts. This court sentences you to life imprisonment without possibility of parole. You will spend the remainder of your days reflecting on the difference between justice and revenge. Brian Boyer showed no emotion as he was led away, but he paused at the courtroom door, turning to look at Franklin one last time. There was no hatred in his eyes anymore, just emptiness, the hollow gaze of someone who'd sacrificed everything for revenge and gained nothing but ruin. Ethel Boyer's trial came a month later with similar results. Life imprisonment, no parole, her considerable wealth seized to compensate victims of her crimes. Franklin testified at both trials, giving detailed accounts of Operation Midnight Sun, the intelligence failures, and the subsequent revenge campaigns. His testimony was cathartic, forcing the CIA and military intelligence to publicly acknowledge their mistakes. The operation was officially condemned, procedures were changed, and measures were put in place to prevent similar tragedies. It wouldn't bring back the people who died, but it was something. 6 months after the hospital siege, Franklin stood in his backyard watching Emma and Shannon play with baby Jack on a sunny Portland afternoon. Lloyd was grilling burgers, regaling Shannon's visiting family with exaggerated stories of their adventures. Agent Lang had become an occasional visitor, stopping by to update Franklin on the trials and investigations. She'd been promoted for her work dismantling the Boyer Revenge Network and had offered Franklin a consulting position with the FBI's hostage rescue team. Franklin had politely declined. He'd seen enough violence for one lifetime. Emma ran up to him, her face bright with joy. "Dad, I don't feel the angry people anymore. They're gone." Franklin picked up his daughter, holding her close. "That's because they are gone, sweetheart. You're safe now. We all are. Forever." Franklin thought about that. The truth was his past would always carry shadows. There might be other consequences, other people affected by Operation Midnight Sun who harbored resentment. But Ethel and Brian had been the heart of the threat, the ones with resources and obsession enough to act. With them imprisoned, the danger had diminished to acceptable background risk, the kind every person faces simply by living in an imperfect world. "Forever," Franklin said, choosing hope over paranoia. "We're safe forever." That night, after the family had gone to bed, Franklin sat alone in his study. He pulled out the files on Operation Midnight Sun, all the classified documents he'd kept as insurance. He read through them one last time, acknowledging every mistake, every decision that had led to tragedy. Then he fed them into a shredder, one page at a time. The past couldn't be changed. The people who died in Kandahar couldn't be brought back. But Franklin could choose how to move forward. He could carry his guilt quietly, honor the dead by living better, and protect his family without letting paranoia rule his life. He was Franklin Bean, former military intelligence officer, security consultant, husband, and father. He'd made mistakes that haunted him. He'd also done heroic things that saved lives. He was complicated, flawed, and human. And that was enough. In the nursery, baby Jack slept peacefully. In Emma's room, his daughter dreamed without nightmares for the first time in months. In their bedroom, Shannon slept soundly, trusting that her husband had finally ended the threats against their family. Franklin checked the security system one last time, old habits died hard, and then allowed himself to relax. The war was over. He'd won not through perfect tactics or overwhelming force, but through smart planning, loyal allies, and the willingness to do whatever was necessary to protect the people he loved. Brian Boyer had wanted Franklin to suffer, to understand the pain of losing family. Instead, Franklin had emerged stronger, his family intact, his conscience clear. He turned Boyer's own obsession against him, dismantled his revenge network piece by piece, and ensured that both Boyer and Ethel would spend their lives in prison while Franklin's family lived free. That was the best revenge Franklin could imagine. Living well, raising his children in safety, and proving that cycles of violence could be broken by people strong enough to choose differently. As Franklin finally headed to bed, he allowed himself a small smile. Emma's sixth sense had saved them. Shannon's courage had sustained them. Lloyd's loyalty had protected them, and Franklin's tactical mind had outmaneuvered their enemies. They'd faced the worst humanity had to offer and survived. They'd faced their past and overcome it. They'd faced impossible odds and won. And tomorrow, they'd wake up to a new day, free from the shadows that had haunted them, free to be a normal family, free to heal, to grow, to live without fear. Franklin climbed into bed beside Shannon, who instinctively reached for him in her sleep. He wrapped his arms around his wife and closed his eyes, finally able to rest without listening for threats in the darkness. The war was over. He brought his family home safely, and that made every sacrifice, every risk, every difficult decision worth it. Franklin Bean had won. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.